Good morning, Coach.
Hold on. There we go. How you doing?
Man, I'm well. How are you?
Good.
I was going to call you too, just to ask you about the situation with your coach.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Well,
That's,
you know Vic, don't you, or no?
I do. I do. Thought that
I
was unfortunate. I'm like, wow,
yeah,
Vic.
I don't know what happened or anything. I just saw the clip, but I don't know anything.
Yeah.
My niece, she plays down and she was over there. She doesn't play for Vic, but they were like, it was pretty bad. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the video, and there were people, of course, that, reached out to Cindy and Brandy. God, was that one of your teams, one of your coaches? No, it wasn't us. So we put out a statement, it wasn't us, but that's unfortunate. And I like Vic's a good dude,
yeah.
like him,
I
but
don't know what I have no idea what caused it. I haven't heard a response. I'm not sure, man.
yeah,
I don't know what would push him to go that far. I don't know.
yeah, he must have thought whatever he thought it was pretty bad. I mean, I coached with him for a while. He and I coached the same. He helped me out, was on the field with me. Passionate guy. I've never seen him, you know, get out of hand or anything like that. So
Yeah.
that was surprising, but it wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good look. So I'm sure there'll be some consequences for him. We'll PGF, I'm sure somebody, but yeah, hopefully not the girls because they had nothing to do with it.
Right, right.
We can't penalize that team for what happened with
Well,
him.
they got booted out of that tournament, so they did get a little penalized. It's not like they just kicked him. They
Right.
said, no, none of you guys are playing. Like,
Everybody got to go.
yeah, everyone got kicked. Like,
Wow.
oh, man.
That's too bad. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah,
Oh, we
so
got our own coaches meeting today. I like it. Oh, there we go.
here
All
we
right.
come. Right. Yeah, at some point too, we should talk about our coming up season and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Good morning. Coaches are coming on. Yeah, and just so I don't forget, if you guys have a topic you think we should talk about, shoot it to me. This actually is from one of the coaches that's been on the call. This topic I thought it was pretty cool. How to blend old school with today's new school coaching values. He's not on it yet, but I said, yeah, that seems like a fun conversation. See what that's about. When I started doing a little work around, a little homework, like what is old school coaching values, what is new school coaching values, where are the conflicts, if any, and then like how do we coach to it? So I don't know if anyone thought about this, want to get us going, but they define old school as discipline and respect for authority, mental and physical toughness, a clear hierarchy. Coach says, athlete does. Emphasis on repetition, routine, and grit, limited emotional engagement or vulnerability, and play through pain mentality. That's kind of the old school values. My question is, are they strictly old school? Like, isn't this some of the stuff that, as a new school coach, we also want to do, or are we old school coaches and this is what we want to do no matter what? Who wants to get us going?
Well, I'll just say this. I don't know that there's an old school mentality in track. I mean, um, the things of old continue to work today. I would also say that oftentimes in other sports, at least, running was used as a punishment,
Mm,
right? Um, but obviously I'm around track, which there is no punishment. Running is no punishment. Like it's the sport. So, I can't say that that necessarily applies. I would say that there's a lot of newer techniques that have come out in recent years. the use of dynamics and plyometrics um, have definitely been more of the new school approach. Um, I remember years ago starting everything off with, deep sessions of just static stretching,
Hmm. Right.
which has now changed and has been encouraged to get into more dynamic exercises. So I can't say that necessarily like old school applies to track in that same sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. So a definition, some of the definition of the terms used for new school coaching values are athlete-centered and collaborative approaches, emphasis on mental health and emotional intelligence, use of sports science, data and recovery strategies, kind of what Matt you were alluding to, prioritizing fun. We had a conversation right a week or so ago on this, and personal development, two-way communication and feedback loops, flexibility and structure and roles. Like, is that exclusive to quote unquote new school? Was any of that in old school? And do we still do some of the old school stuff? Like Matt's saying, like running track is track, and whether I know for I hope to think of myself as a transformational coach, so maybe new school. I try to really emphasize for our coaches not to make running a punishment, make it part of what you do, because in every sport you're going to have to run, even if it's short bursts in volleyball. There's some running element. So yeah, anybody, Paul, maybe you got a
Uh,
thought on that?
you described a conundrum that I feel like is like my coaching experience so far. That's something they bring up just about every single spring training, every single time, old school, new school, and our head of player development just says, and it's just called school, is what he always says. It's like we're just learning. We're learning to
Mm-hmm.
adapt, learning how our students learn. But one of the things when you first brought up the question today, the first thought that came to mind was like, what type of culture are you trying to develop? And with your culture, you also have to recognize what type of students that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have to have the accountability and the planning to create the culture that you're trying to that you have, but at the same time you have to try to meet the students of where they're at the same time. So that's why I think there's a bit of a combination of the two,
Yeah.
of those old school and new school, because I definitely recognize that the way the players learn and how they respond, how they communicate is much, much different than
Mm-hmm.
even just going back to when I was playing and being brought up. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I also see the mistakes of sometimes of what was made of just being, oh, it's just all automatic yes all the time. And then you have guys who, so I remember even recognizing certain colleges how they play baseball. It was just the head coach or whoever, they made the sign, they dictated how and what plays were being put on, how pitchers and catchers were calling pitches. Like they just did everything. And then when some of those guys went to minor league or major leagues, they had no idea how to think on their own because
Mm-hmm.
they were just told this is how you do it, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
So I see how like when you create like always the authoritative culture, then you have people who or players that can't think solely on their own and develop on their own,
Yeah.
learn through mistakes that they created.
Yeah, that's good. Coach Bolden, I know, we talked a little bit about this. You alluded a couple of weeks ago about being maybe an old school coach. This is how I do it. I'm trying to adapt to some of the culture that these younger folks have. Um, but what do you say about this old school, new school conundrum? I like that.
Well, I was listening to the other coach, and he's talking about there's track is track, but the coach just alluded to that this is a different type of kid that you're training today, and in order to be a transformational coach, you have to kind of make some adaptations to your training if you want to be successful. Um, There's definitely a difference between, to me, with old
Mm-hmm.
school approach and the new school approach and the softer, fillier, fluffy coach that you have now.
Mm-hmm.
I think because um, so many things have gone on in our society that we approach sports differently, and your feelings are the kids' feelings, the parents' feelings. Everybody is so sensitive. So you have to kind of make some adjustments to your approach. Being a hard-nosed, old school kind of coach, you won't have the success that you want to have if
Hmm.
you stay in that era.
Hmm.
And so I think that as me being an old school type of coach, that I've made adjustments over the years so that I could reach the athletes that I'm training.
Hmm.
And I think it's essential to being able to be successful as a coach to be able to transform and adjust to today's kind of behaviors that you are dealing with.
Hmm.
Um, I love some of the things from the old schools. I just took the good things and mixed them in with some of the new school approach because you have to, the mental health is such a big issue now. And these kids, you're a psychologist out there every day, trying to sort through problems and deal with problems. Kids don't think. And, so uh, it's tough because, you know, you've been brought up a certain way and you've seen the successes that you have um, being one way, and now when you've coached a long time, you're dealing with a different group of kids and parents,
Hmm.
and so you have to be able to adapt to these new kind of things that help these kids respond and get the best out of them. I'm having a tough time, but I always look at it. If I'm gonna do this, you got to make some adjustments. Can't be so straight line that you're not willing to make some changes to your approach if you want to have success. So it's not, yeah, before it used to be my way or the highway, and now you kind of communicate a little more. You want the kids to think more, so you got to make adjustments
Yeah.
to it. Because there's some good things in I think in the new school way of coaching. You know. But some of those old principles are still valuable today. A lot of these kids don't have structure or discipline, and I think the new school you still have some type of structure and planning. I think the discipline is different in just the way that you have to discipline people and what some of the things that you could do 15 years ago you can't do now as far as discipline.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can still run to punish, let me tell you. And you can run because track is running, but there are certain things that you could do with running that are punishments, So that's where the old school for me still comes in. Like you say, don't use running as a punishment,
Hmm.
but sometimes you in order to reach them you have to have some type of, when you're trying to still instill discipline, that you still have to kind of have some type of way to get your message across without yelling, without screaming.
Hmm.
Kids understand, okay, if you do this and I tell you not to, this is what we're going to do. And so I think you have to be able to balance it all.
Yeah. I don't know if Carlo or Josh are chomping at the bit, but I was going to ask Aaron. I'm glad you got on, Coach. You threw this topic out. I think it's a great topic as we've been having some good conversation. Throwing the topic out, hearing what you're hearing, thinking about old school versus new school. Go ahead, talk to us. Tell us what's on your mind.
Um, oh boy, so I'm not sure what you guys covered, but just listen to Coach Bolden. He kind of stole my thunder there. I mean, everything he said was basically along the lines of what, I was thinking. I don't know if you guys that, talked about, some of the mechanics of how we have to interact with kids nowadays have changed,
Mm-hmm.
where we've got to have we can't necessarily use the same type of tone that was used with us as coaches and that we might want to gravitate to, and just how we talk to the kids, the language we might use. We've even got physical limitations. I can tell you right now, I probably haven't touched a kid in terms of making a correction in their mechanics in probably 20, 30 years.
Right,
you
right.
know I don't leave myself in my facility with a young kid or a female athlete, alone. So a lot of these things, just from the mechanics standpoint, for me sometimes it's hard to navigate because I grew up with something so completely different. And so, the reason why I was brought the subject up is like, well, has time passed me by and maybe is it time for me, to step out, not from a necessarily a knowledge based sort of thing, but just from, that connection and that internal struggle that I have with, man, am I being too hard? Or am I being too soft? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And again, you guys
Mm-hmm.
might have covered that already, so I apologize, but I had a hard
That's
time
good.
getting on. But you can't be reckless now. You know, uh, it's a very fine line,
Yeah, that's good.
and so it begs the question, you know, when do you step out?
Right. That's a great question. I think I think we're always, asking that, especially if you stay around long enough. uh, Josh Toy or Carlo, I see Coach Chapman's on. So we're talking about old school versus new school, and I did a little work trying to figure out like what does that really mean, right? What do people mean when they say old school versus new school? We started with that, kind of defining some of the core values that each one talks about, right? And then I got this question, where can the blend happen, right? Because if we recognize that we may be from old school, we have some old school tendencies, or we learn from an old school coach, but here we are with the new school. Like, how can it blend? What's the blend? Like, one of the thoughts I had, discipline. One of the coaches brought it up. Yeah, we still need to have discipline. We still need to have some fine lines. But now I think Aaron touched on it too. There's more of the empathy piece too, right? Whereas you may not have, my coaches were disciplinarians without empathy a lot of times. But now we're in a whole different world. We can have clear expectations in a safe environment. Discipline back when I played was this is what you do, this is how you do it. You're not asking a bunch of questions, just get it done. Now we can have those clear expectations, but we can do it in a safe environment where we have to be conscious of what the kid is feeling. And somebody mentioned mental health. So yeah, Josh, what do you say to this?
Yeah, there's so many ways to go here. I mean, when I think of old school, I was playing in the 90s. You guys might have been playing in the 80s, thinking that was old school or 70s or whatever.
Yes,
But I
sir.
think of kind of like you guys have been saying, I think of like really hard-nosed, disciplined, militaristic, like I mean, you were getting yelled at if you messed up, depending on what sport and everything you're doing. But I think we've grown as coaches. Every decade I feel like probably is different from the 70s to the 90s to where are we going to be at in 20 years.
Right.
I think they're trying to care for the athletes more than they did. Like you said, if you got injured, you better wipe that blood off and you're playing the next play. Or we didn't talk about the mental side of anything when you were playing. So I think we've grown so much. But like one of the others had mentioned, these kids are different than these days. It's like their attention spans are shorter, their work ethic isn't as good. So how do you combine and blend the old school, like hard nose versus some of these kids are really coddled and they're not. They have everything fed to them, so they're not hard nosed like some of us were growing up. So I think trying to blend, to blend the old school and new school, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, some good thoughts here. I like it.
Yeah. Carlo, what about what you say, sir? You're kind of in between, right? You're old school, new school, right? You're on that border probably.
I like learning from all you coaches because there's a mix bag over here in this group because we got old school and new school, and I think as a coach we got to find that balance to have both ways. I think, in my opinion, that's how I coach. Like you have to have that discipline, but at the same time, with these new kids and new athletes, in a way to instill discipline, you have to explain to them why you disciplining them in this certain way, why you're making them run, so they understand that okay, I need to refocus, and this is coach is mad now because he's making us run, and this is why we have to run because we're messing up. So I think you just have to explain it more and let them realize why they're doing this punishment and why they're punishment or why they're getting punished.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as like old school ways, I mean, like I think like Coach said, some of these kids can't handle the hard nosed militaristic coaching style because they're not built that way. Like Coach Carter, he can't coach like Coach Carter nowadays because they'll just walk out the gym. They'll they'll just protest. So you gotta find a balance because every kid is different. You know what I mean, and just gotta adapt to different athletes and teach them. Some kids like the old school way and some kids don't. So you just gotta learn how to learn that athlete and know how to coach them in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, Coach Chapman, I'm going to ask you. An old school definition would be defined as being toughness. New school would say maybe coach be more self-aware, right, of your athletes, and then the blended practice would be mental performance coaching. What we do. What do you think about this old school, new school? You're a product of new school or newer school than us older guys.
Yeah, I'm a little on the. I was born in the '90s, so my old school is the late '90s, early 2000s, and I agree with everything that everybody has said so far of like needing to find a balance and what works for some may not work for the other. Just speaking strictly from coaching track and field, what has been beneficial for me is using both. Um, but it starts with creating that relationship first so that they know then when I do come harder, it is already like there's already that bank of trust, that bank of love, that bank of like I'm doing this out of because I care for you and because I want the best for you. And I also think like you have some students who you can do that to, and who you can get more out of, and you can push a little bit more. But then you also have the other kids who are just doing it for fun. And so the way you might do like an old school approach if you have to, but the level of that old school might be different. Whereas like my elite athlete, I can step to this person a little bit more because I know I need to get more out of them and I know where it is they're trying to go, as opposed to like the person that's out here, they're doing it for fun, but they want to get better. I might not come at them as I would as the elite athlete. And so I think it is really just finding that balance. But it does start from what I've noticed is from that relationship piece and really making sure that the athletes feel safe, which I think is much different because like growing up, it's like you don't ask no questions. I'm not explaining myself. You get on that line when I tell you to get on that line. And like, I was the type of athlete, which is what really drove me to mental performance coaching because I felt like I performed. Well, I didn't feel like it. I know I performed better under coaches who took more of that holistic approach and cared
Mm.
about me as a person because I'm naturally more of a sensitive person. And so when coaches are screaming and yelling at me, I can't I it's not registering because the way that they're saying it to me is like I don't want to say threatening, but it's just a little too much for me to comprehend. And so, um, you know, I always wanted to make sure I was never that coach, and then I always watched the coaches who I performed well at. And I was reading this book called 10 things like 10 to 25, the science behind motivating young people, and they say you have to have high standards, but you also need high support. And if they don't feel that high support, but they feel those high standards, then they're not going to feel comfortable to go and chase whatever it is that they're doing. They're not going to feel comfortable to make mistakes. They're not going to feel comfortable to take risks. And so that's really how I try to structure my coaching. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna get in you, but then I need you to know I'm only doing this because I believe in you and I know that you're capable of accomplishing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I don't know if Toy he got into still a little bit of your thunder, but I saw you nod, and I felt, and I was going to ask you as a female, and not to be sexist, but as a female athlete, female coach, coaching females, old school versus new school. You grew up in an old school era. What do you say about what we're
I
talking
think I think my coach was definitely old school. However, the relationship was already established before I stepped foot on that track. And it actually came from my mom was do not yell at my child. Do not raise your voice. You ask her, you explain like, maybe what's behind the things that you're asking. So the relationship was already built there. And that guy used to drop us off and say, get home the best way you can. And we was hustling. We was running down train tracks, going up hills. And I grew up in Compton, California, and we was rolling. and we would do
That's
anything
just
for
old
him.
school. Just drop you
We
off.
would do, yeah, yeah. We had PVC pipes for
Come
batons.
on.
We didn't have anything, but we would run for him because he built a relationship for us, and that's just what we did. And I think now, like I've been thinking about like our season coming up, like maybe having to sit down, like what is it that you want from this? Like what are you looking? What are your expectations for us, and what are what do we expect of you? What are your goals? Like if your goals are here because you want to be in the social club, then I know when we get ready to get down, you're going to be over there in the social group. You're not going to be a part of this group that says they want to bust it out, they want to be better, they want to be something. You want to be over here, like, doing it that way. And maybe we can inspire you to get into the other group. But I think the blend, I definitely have a problem because I'm like, oh my God, these people are so soft. What are we doing? What are we doing? This is not even hard work here. If we can't even do these basic things, how can we get you to the next place? But that reminds me to have to keep going back to say, now, what are you here for? Like, can you tell me again? We need to understand what are the expectations. Like, why are you here? Then I know how much more I need to pour into you because maybe you're not here to be an Olympic athlete, not here to be the MVP.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
gonna put you in that group.
Yeah. No, and as soon as you were saying, there were certain kids that came to mind that I know are going to be out there to socialize and talk. And we're going to have to say, go in that corner because the real players over here trying to get down and win this thing. As our time comes winding down, some of the strategies that I came up with in terms of blending both. One is use why with what and how. Old school tells them what, new school explains why and explores the how, right? Like kids want to know why. Like you can't just say go do it, right? But at the same time, there's an expectation of why we're doing this thing right now. Old school is saying this is what we need to do, this is when we're going to do it, and the new school is just blending a little bit more of the explanation. And then the other one is respect is earned both ways, right? Teach and model it. Like nowadays, you show a lot of respect, show love. I like that word. I use that word a lot, and then I think you get it back more so with these kids, right? Like because you can't scare them into doing what you want. Someone said, yeah, they just get up and leave. They just pack and walk out the door, like I'm done, right? Or they just won't show back up, maybe. Um, so yeah, so any final words on this subject? I love it. If you have other things that you think we want to talk about, shoot that to me. I really appreciate Coach Aaron throwing this ideal out. But any final? We got about 5 or 6 more minutes on new school versus old school. Help us out. Who's got a couple things that we can take away here?
I thought what Toy was mentioning about like just saying like, why are you here? Because even at my level, like you have guys that are 2 phone calls away from achieving, what their dream of being a Major League Baseball player. But a real good example is every summer I've been around coaching now, guys start complaining about when it's hot. And I've had a meeting with the pitchers and being like, if you guys are talking about it's hot, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but baseball's played in the summer. Stadiums are outdoors. And there's, when we're in Richmond, during this season, like there's teams that are farther south. Like this is the wrong, like I just tell them straight up, you need to find a different job if the heat is keeping you from working today.
Right.
Or, like stuff like this. Oh, I can't get a grip on the ball because I'm sweating. Surprise! like find a new job. And I've told them that like directly, like this isn't the job for you.
Yeah.
Till they invent, every team's air conditioned, dome covered stadium. This isn't the job. And so like kind of just laying it out there, being like, this is the expectation of the job or of the sport that we're playing. And to your point of explaining also the how and the why, like you give them solutions instead of just saying, hey, this is what it is, and I don't care, we're doing this, and never hearing it. You have to give them space or like an opportunity to express something.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I still have to lay down the rules of like this is what the job is.
Yeah.
Maybe this job isn't for you. If that's fine, you can still go play baseball in an adult rec league or whatever you want to do. But this right here, the one that you're getting paid for, this is what it is.
Yeah.
I think I even had a former coach who, travel ball coach who did, very similar. Looking back, he wasn't a yeller, wasn't, in your face or anything or calling you out like personally, but we really knew from day one, this is our practice schedule. This is what we're expected to wear. This is our game schedule. Like there was no like questions of what anything was going to be. Every practice had a certain time frame, and this is why we're doing it. Like everything was always explained thoroughly. But at the same time, if you weren't playing or you weren't playing well, it wasn't like, hey, you can't play baseball. It's just like, hey, maybe this isn't the team for you.
Yeah.
You can play baseball somewhere else.
Yeah,
Just,
right.
it's not.
Yeah, I'm gonna borrow some of that. I like that. Like maybe I'm thinking about softball. Like you said, it's a sport played springtime. It's gonna be hot, and maybe before day one, letting my kids remind them that you've chosen to play this sport this time of year, where there will be some hot days, some hot practices, some hot games. It's dirt. We're gonna be getting dirty. You're gonna dive and slide. Like really being clear with those expectations early on. I like that. That's good. I'm gonna definitely borrow some of that. Mr. Thigpen, any final thoughts from you, sir?
No, again, I like all of the comments. Again, this is something I've just kind of been struggling with a little bit lately, but I like your term where you talked about firmness but empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Coach Paul's uh, suggestion about, hey, just reminding them, this is the job you signed up for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Toy had some good points as well, and then so did Coach Chapman. And that's one of the reasons why I'm participating in this, is because you don't know everything, and it's real
Yeah.
easy to get set in your ways.
Yep.
And so I like hearing from the other coaches, both of my age peer and these younger coaches, because they're shining light on things
Mm-hmm.
that I might have forgotten
Yep.
about or not even thought about.
Yeah.
And so it kind of helps center me back to trying to be the best coach that I can be. So I appreciate all of these
Yeah.
podcasts getting together.
I do too. Coach Tillman, why don't you wait in early and you have some really good stuff. What say you as we come to an end here?
Yeah, no, what I've been thinking about in terms of all the comments is that there's really two sides of this, right? One is the physical old school, and there's also the mental old school versus new school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that balance is, how do you balance the physical and the mental?
Right.
Because what I've heard from everyone is that there is a mental side of things that oftentimes needs to be softer in today's world to explain to them what's going on. Mental health was brought up. You can't yell at them like the days of old. Um, but you also have to show a lot of empathy and understanding and
Yeah.
direction in terms of helping them understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
On the physical side of things, I think you can be a little more old school, because in the physical side of things is where you're trying to push them to excel.
Yeah.
But you can't be too soft on the physical part of it, or else they're not going to excel at the level that you want them to.
Right.
So that's where I'm feeling that balance comes in, is between the physical and mental.
Yeah.
And someone else said before that, you know, showing them love, right? They know that you're doing this because of the love that you have for them.
Mm.
If that's the case, then the physical part of it is understood.
Yes. That's good.
Well put.
Well put.
So
That's good. Why don't we wrap it
Can
up
I
on
can
that,
I say
man?
one more thing?
Yeah, go for it, Coach.
Coach Thigpen, it's never you're getting you just got to adapt. You know what I'm saying? And adapting is very much possible. It just might take some stretching, it might take some growing, but don't leave the sport. The sport needs you, you know?
We
So
ain't letting them. We ain't
it
letting
just
them leave.
yeah, it just takes some adapting, some stretching, some growing, some uncomfortable conversations. But at the end of the day, we're all learning from each other. And there's times where I'm like, am I being too soft on these kids? Right. So like
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever a perfect formula, but it's, hey, we tried this thing this year, it didn't work, let's try something else next year. And so I just wanted to leave you with that.
I appreciate that.
That's good. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, got a topic, send it to me. Got some other people you want to invite, encourage them. But I agree, this is a really cool space for me. I'm getting better every week. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next Friday.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good
Take care.
weekend,
Have a
guys.
good weekend.
You too.
Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.
Later.